was staring at my computer screen when the announcement came through. Isabel Carrion, our 23-year-old summer intern who had been with the company for exactly 11 weeks, was being awarded the quarterly performance bonus. My quarterly performance bonus, $72,000. The number sat in my head like static as the room around me blurred. That bonus should have been mine after I had demolished every sales target they put in front of me this year. The conference room suddenly felt airless as our division head, Gregory Thirststone, began explaining how Isabel had shown extraordinary promise and innovative thinking that justified immediate recognition. I watched her from across the table, hands folded neatly in her lap, looking stunned and quietly delighted at the same time. She had no idea what was happening. None of us did, really. None of us except Gregory. I had been at this major technology consulting firm for 4 years. 4 years of late nights, emergency weekend calls from panicked clients, and stepping into failing projects everyone else avoided. I had rescued accounts that were weeks away from termination and rebuilt client trust from the ground up. Just this quarter, I had secured 6 new enterprise clients, each contract worth more than Isabel's entire annual salary. The bonus policy was explicit. Anyone who exceeded their annual target by more than 30% qualified automatically. I had exceeded mine by 68%. And yet I sat there, hands resting calmly on the table, watching my reward handed to someone else while Gregory spoke about cultivating future leaders and rewarding fresh perspectives. The money stung, of course. $72,000 would have wiped out my student loans and maybe finally allowed me to take a real vacation for the first time in 3 years. But the deeper cut was how deliberate this felt. Gregory didn't hesitate. His justification sounded practiced, polished, rehearsed. This wasn't an oversight. This was a decision. After the meeting ended, I lingered near the elevator bank, letting people file past me. Isabel approached with hesitation written all over her face. "Celine, I hope you know I had no idea about any of this," she said quietly. "I feel terrible that you weren't recognized too. You've been so generous with your time, teaching me everything." I looked at her and felt my anger soften into something more complicated. She genuinely didn't know. She wasn't complicit. She was a young woman swept into something carefully orchestrated long before she arrived. "Congratulations, Isabel," I told her honestly. "You do deserve recognition for your hard work." She thanked me, relief flooding her face, and stepped into the elevator. That evening, I did something I rarely made time for anymore. I called my sister, Erin. "They gave away your bonus," I said the moment she answered. Her disbelief crackled through the speaker. "Celine, that's insane. Can't you go to HR?" I stood by my window, looking out over the city lights. "It's not that simple," I replied. "I think I know why this happened." During Isabel's first week, she had mentioned growing up in Millbrook Falls, a town so small I'd never heard of it. 2 weeks earlier, I had overheard Gregory mentioning Millbrook Falls on a personal call, talking about visiting his mother there. The coincidence stuck with me. After that, I started noticing things I'd previously overlooked. Gregory and Isabel shared easy familiarity, references to the same diners, the same local families. When I casually asked Isabel about her hometown, she mentioned that her family had known the Thirststones forever, Gregory's family. The bonus had nothing to do with performance. It was hometown loyalty dressed up as corporate values. Before I go further, take a moment and think about where you're listening from. Think about how many times you've watched effort lose to connections. If this resonates, you already understand why what I did next mattered. Discovering favoritism changes how you interpret everything. Every smile, every decision, every casual comment gains a second meaning. Over the next few days, I paid close attention. Gregory gave Isabel the easiest client portfolios. He praised her for ideas other consultants had shared weeks earlier. He shielded her from demanding clients and complex technical issues the rest of us handled without complaint. She was being positioned for success in ways she didn't even realize. Gregory underestimated one thing. I'm not explosive. I don't slam doors or send emotional emails. I've learned that the most effective responses often look like support. I started with Isabel. "I've been thinking about your growth," I told her the following Monday, sitting on the edge of her desk. "You have leadership potential, and I think advanced training would really help you." Her face lit up. "Really? I'd love that. You're honestly the smartest person on this team." Over the next week, I began what I called her accelerated development track. I taught her advanced client management strategies, the analytical frameworks that had taken me years to master, and the technical details even senior consultants struggled with. I walked her through complex timelines, internal power dynamics within client organizations, and negotiation strategies built on long-standing relationships. She absorbed everything, eagerly, taking detailed notes and asking thoughtful questions. She was intelligent and hardworking. In different circumstances, she would have grown naturally into the role. These weren't different circumstances. I began recommending Isabel to increasingly complex assignments. When a demanding integration project came up, I suggested her. When a high-stakes executive presentation was needed, I recommended her fresh perspective. Gregory approved every suggestion with enthusiasm, never questioning whether she was truly ready. At the same time, I quietly changed my own behavior. For 4 years, I had been the safety net. I stayed late, answered weekend calls, fixed problems no one else noticed. I stopped. I left at 5:30. I responded to weekend emergencies on Monday. I declined additional projects politely and professionally. I wasn't rebelling. I was setting boundaries everyone else had always enjoyed. The impact was immediate. Calls went unanswered. Issues lingered. Timelines slipped. Systems that relied on my invisible labor began to strain. Meanwhile, Isabel encountered the difference between learning concepts and applying them under pressure. She could explain frameworks but faltered when clients challenged assumptions. She understood models but struggled when data didn't behave as expected. When she came to me overwhelmed, I offered encouragement but no rescue. I reminded her that independent problem-solving was essential at senior levels. I meant it sincerely. By the 3rd week, Gregory was visibly rattled. Small issues had compounded into serious concerns. Client satisfaction dipped. The division's reputation began to fray. He pulled me aside, carefully choosing his words. "Celine, I admire that you're maintaining better work-life balance, but we're facing urgent situations that could really use your expertise."
I listened calmly as he listed problems I once would have fixed without question. "They do sound challenging," I agreed. "I'm sure the team will handle them. Isabel has been doing impressive work lately." Gregory's jaw tightened. "Isabel is still developing her skills. These situations require someone with more experience." "I understand your concern," I replied. "Unfortunately, I'm completely committed to my current projects for the next several weeks. Perhaps you could consider bringing in external consultants for additional capacity." External consultants would cost roughly 3 times my salary for the same work, something Gregory knew as well as I did. That afternoon, I received a call that changed everything. Diana Westfield from Apex Strategic Solutions had been trying to reach me for months regarding a senior consultant position. I'd politely declined before because I valued stability over opportunity, but this time I listened carefully. The base salary was 40% higher than my current compensation. The bonus structure was transparent and merit-based, with clear performance metrics. The company culture emphasized professional development and work-life balance. Most importantly, they specialized in exactly the kind of complex technical consulting I found most intellectually stimulating. "I'm very interested," I told Diana. "How quickly can we move forward?" "We could have you in for interviews this week," she replied immediately. "I've been hoping to connect with you for so long that I'm willing to expedite the entire process." I scheduled the interviews for Thursday and Friday using personal days I'd accumulated but never taken. The interview process exceeded all expectations. Apex Strategic Solutions offered precisely the environment I'd always wished my current company could become. By Friday afternoon, they extended an offer including a $20,000 signing bonus, 60% salary increase, and equity participation potentially worth far more over time. I requested the weekend to consider it, though I had already made my decision. Monday morning, I arrived at the office with my resignation letter in my bag and a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in months. Gregory intercepted me before I reached my desk. "Celine, we need to talk," he said urgently. "Several major clients have expressed concerns about service quality lately. I think we need to reassess some recent project assignments." He was finally beginning to realize that his golden intern wasn't prepared for the responsibilities he had handed her. But instead of admitting his mistake, he expected me to quietly fix the problems without recognition. I looked at him standing there, desperate for me to salvage the situation he had created through favoritism, and I felt the final piece of my plan clicking into place. "Gregory, I appreciate you bringing these concerns to my attention," I said calmly. "I think this conversation is perfectly timed, actually." I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope I had been carrying all morning. "I wanted to let you know I'll be transitioning to a new opportunity. This is my formal resignation letter. My last day will be 2 weeks from today." The color drained from Gregory's face as he stared at the envelope as if it contained a bomb. "Celine, this timing is really difficult," he stammered. "Can we discuss what it would take to retain you? I'm sure we can address any concerns you might have about compensation or advancement opportunities." I handed him the resignation letter with a genuine smile. "I'm grateful for everything I've learned here, Gregory. This decision isn't about dissatisfaction. Sometimes new challenges just align perfectly with your professional goals." He opened the letter immediately, scanning it with growing panic. "You're giving exactly the minimum required notice during our busiest quarter," he said, looking up at me. "Is there any flexibility on your start date with the new company?" "Unfortunately, no," I replied. "They need someone to begin immediately on a time-sensitive project that matches my expertise perfectly." This was entirely true. Apex Strategic Solutions had a major client implementation starting in 3 weeks that required exactly my skill set. Diana had been thrilled when I accepted their offer with such a rapid turnaround. Gregory was clearly calculating the impossibility of his situation. Training a replacement for my responsibilities would take months, assuming he could find someone with comparable experience willing to work at my current salary. The ongoing client crisis needed immediate attention from someone who understood both the technical requirements and the relationship dynamics involved. Most importantly, he was realizing that his decision to give my bonus to Isabel had created the exact circumstances making my departure so devastating. "Gregory, I want to be completely transparent with you," he said, lowering his voice. "I think there may have been some miscommunication about the quarterly bonus allocation. I'd like to revisit that decision and ensure you receive appropriate recognition for your contributions." I looked at him with genuine sympathy. "Gregory, I truly appreciate that gesture, but my decision isn't connected to the bonus situation. Isabel absolutely deserved that recognition, and I'm happy she received it." This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment he would understand that fixing the money wouldn't repair the underlying problem. "Sometimes the best opportunities come from unexpected timing," I continued. "I'm actually grateful that everything worked out exactly as it did." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched the full scope of my departure's impact unfold like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Isabel approached me on my third to last day, looking exhausted and overwhelmed. "Celine, I need to ask you something honestly," she said. "Did you know this would happen when you started teaching me those advanced techniques?" I considered her question carefully. Isabel had grown tremendously over the past month. Even as she struggled, the pressure had revealed her true capabilities and limitations in ways that gentle development never could. I knew you were intelligent enough to handle complex challenges, I told her truthfully. I also knew you'd need to discover your own approaches to solving difficult problems. She nodded slowly. I think I understand now why you've been so successful here. It's not just about knowing the right techniques, it's about having the experience to know when and how to apply them. Exactly. And now you're building that experience much faster than you would have otherwise. Isabel had indeed learned more in 4 weeks than she probably would have in 6 months of gradual development. The intensity had been overwhelming, but it had shown her exactly which skills she needed to develop and how much work lay ahead. I'm going to ask Gregory to adjust my responsibilities, I added, watching her process the lesson. She said, I think I was promoted too quickly, and I want to make sure I'm actually ready before I take on anything this complex again. I felt genuine pride watching her take ownership of her development. She had transformed from someone who didn't know what she didn't know into someone capable of accurately assessing her own abilities. That sounds like excellent judgment, I told her. Meanwhile, the operational impacts of my departure were becoming impossible to ignore. The client waiting for their software integration solution had threatened to terminate their contract unless they received immediate resolution. The executive board presentation Isabel had been assigned was postponed twice because no one else could compile the necessary analysis in time. Most significantly, 3 other senior consultants approached Gregory requesting salary discussions. My departure had prompted them to evaluate their own compensation and workload balance, and they had started questioning why they had been accepting below-market salaries while handling above-average responsibilities. Gregory found himself facing not just the loss of his most productive team member, but the potential exodus of experienced staff suddenly questioning the department's compensation structure. On my final Friday, Gregory requested a private meeting. Celine, I want you to know I recognize the mistakes I made, he said. The bonus decision was influenced by factors that shouldn't have been relevant. You deserve that recognition, and I let personal considerations cloud my professional judgment. I appreciated his honesty more than he probably realized. I respect you for acknowledging that, Gregory. Those kinds of decisions are difficult, and I understand the pressures you face. Is there anything I can do to change your mind about leaving? He asked. A counteroffer, additional responsibilities, or a commitment to more transparent recognition processes? I considered how to respond. Gregory was genuinely trying to make amends, but he was also discovering the consequences of prioritizing favoritism over competence. I think this transition is beneficial for everyone involved, I said finally. You'll have the opportunity to restructure the team in ways that better support long-term success. Isabel will be able to develop her skills at a more sustainable pace, and I'll be taking on challenges that align perfectly with my professional goals. Can I ask where you're going? He said. Apex Strategic Solutions. They specialize in the complex technical consulting that I find most engaging. Gregory's expression shifted to something between admiration and regret. They're our biggest competitor in the enterprise consulting space, he said quietly. You'll be working on exactly the types of projects you've always handled best here. That's exactly why the opportunity was so appealing, I replied. What Gregory didn't know was that Diana had been recruiting me specifically because Apex had been losing potential clients to our company. My reputation in the industry was strong enough that several enterprise customers had chosen our firm primarily because they wanted to work with me personally. Now, those relationships would naturally transition to Apex along with my departure, not through any deliberate client poaching, but through the natural movement that occurs when trusted consultants change firms. The irony was perfect. Gregory's decision to give my bonus to someone else had prompted my exit, which would ultimately cost his company far more than $72,000 in lost revenue and competitive disadvantage. On my last day, Isabel organized a small farewell gathering. The entire team attended, including Gregory, who looked genuinely sad to see me leave. "Celine has been the backbone of this department," he announced to the group. "Her professionalism, expertise, and mentorship have contributed to every success we've achieved over the past 4 years." I looked around the room at colleagues who had become friends, at Isabel, who had grown so much in such a short time, and at Gregory, who was finally understanding the cost of his choices. "Thank you all for making this such a meaningful experience," I said. "I'm excited to see how everyone continues growing and achieving amazing things." 3 months later, I received a LinkedIn message from Isabel. She had been promoted to a senior consulting position, but this time with proper preparation and support. She had also been featured in the company newsletter for developing an innovative client training program. "I wanted to thank you for pushing me to grow faster than I thought possible," she wrote. "I know those weeks were overwhelming, but I learned more about myself and my capabilities than I would have in years of gradual development. I hope we can collaborate again someday." Gregory had reached out as well, asking if I'd be willing to provide consulting services on specific projects where our expertise might complement each other. His department had recovered from my departure, but they had restructured their approach to talent development and compensation to prevent similar situations. As for me, Apex Strategic Solutions exceeded every expectation I had. The work was intellectually stimulating, the culture genuinely supported professional growth, and the compensation reflected the value I brought to complex client challenges. Most importantly, I had learned something crucial about my own worth. For years, I had been so focused on proving myself through extra effort and uncomplaining reliability that I had become undervalued and taken for granted. The bonus situation forced me to recognize that my contributions were significant enough to command respect and appropriate recognition. The revenge wasn't about destroying anyone or causing permanent damage. It was about stepping away from a situation where my value wasn't recognized and letting natural consequences reveal what that value actually was. Gregory learned that favoritism creates the kind of instability that strong performers won't tolerate. Isabel learned to assess her own readiness before accepting responsibilities beyond her capabilities. The department learned to structure compensation and recognition systems that truly reflected merit rather than personal relationships. I learned that sometimes the most powerful response to unfairness isn't fighting it, but simply refusing to enable it anymore. The $72,000 bonus that started this whole situation turned out to be the cheapest lesson Gregory's department ever received about the cost of losing their most valuable contributors. And honestly, watching everything unfold exactly as I had anticipated was more satisfying than any amount of money could have ever been. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt undervalued or overlooked despite your contributions, please hit the like button and share your experiences in the comments. Sometimes we need to hear that other people understand what it feels like to watch connections matter more than competence. Subscribe for more stories about finding your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve, because your value doesn't depend on others recognizing it. You get to decide when enough is enough.